Oh my word. Welcome to, can I believe it, episode 7 of the Amazon Connect podcast with
Yes.
me, Douglas Park, and my wonderful, magnificent co-host, Mark Ridkowski. How are you, Mark?
Doing all right, Doug. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm
Still,
doing
we're
very
still on other
well.
sides of the globe as usual.
I know. When shall we embrace, other than, mentally?
Are you
When should
jealous right
Yes.
now?
Exactly.
Now, we'll get to our guest in 1 second,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I always like to begin by asking, where actually are you, Mark?
So I'm in Seattle. Right?
We're slightly
And so
closer. We've moved
we're
slightly
closer.
closer.
We're a little bit closer, right?
And
So
not North Carolina anymore.
Nope. So I get a few more hours of sunlight, around that, which is nice. So, but why don't you introduce our special guest?
I think that would be a great idea. Now, I think it's fair to say that our guest has been a long time member of
Yes.
the Amazon Connect family, but is something of a prodigal child because
Yes.
lost her way for a few moments and
For a
went off
little
to
bit.
help
For a little bit.
other
Yes.
parts of AWS.
She's back.
But she's back. She's back. So, Hannah Bloking, welcome to the podcast. Would you mind introducing yourself and giving us just a couple of sentences on background? We can go much deeper as we go into the podcast, but yeah, just give us the lowdown on who you are.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to be here for lucky number 7.
Yeah.
So this should be the best one yet, obviously. But yeah, so really excited to be back with the Amazon Connect family. I'm currently building and leading a new charter with applied AI and the solution architecture team. So what I'm bringing with me after my year, it was a year, not a couple of
A
months,
year.
by the way. Yeah,
A
glad you
year.
missed me that much.
Track.
But yeah, I spent some time over in the Amazon Q business world as a product manager, so joined the dark side, and really got a lot of learnings.
Some of us
around...
won't take offense to that. That's
No.
okay.
Yeah, sorry, no offense, Mark. But yeah, really gained a lot of learnings around generative AI and enterprises, and yeah, looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, and I think we can always use that in any team in Amazon, getting some ideas of what other teams are up to and what's happening elsewhere in the business. That is fantastic. So let's get straight into the what's news.
Yeah.
But and the
key ones.
yeah, because
it's been a busy week since I think we last chatted.
it has been a busy week, and there's even been one dropped overnight. And so I might even start with that one. Yeah. So that is Amazon Q and Connect, which is, as we know, is a generative AI, both agent assist function and self-service. Now, not only allows you, Mark, hold on to your hat, not only allows you to modify and create your own prompts, both for pre-processing and for answer generation.
Yeah.
But you can select which model, Mark. You can
No
select
way.
which model you want. Simple
come
drop-down
on.
list. Yes.
That's-
All within the UI. So the business user can go in, can experiment, maybe you want something faster and quicker, like a Nova model. Maybe you want something longer and more verbose, like a Claude model. And also, I notice you can tell which ones are going to use cross-region inferencing as well. So if you really want to make sure it's staying in country and you're not risking any of your data, you can make sure that that's going to happen without having to raise tickets or anything like that to get your data staying local. The other one, and I think I might let you tell me your thoughts on this one, because this came out a few days ago, and I noticed it getting a lot of love on LinkedIn. And that is the metrics for the contact flows, or flows as we call them these days.
Yes.
So that is, how are your flows performing? Which choices are being made? So how are you seeing this impacting customers, Mark?
Well, I think it's one of those key features where it continues to give you better visibility, right? Particularly when you're building, your contact center experience, right? We always talk about with Connected the speed at which you can continue to innovate and improve your overall CX experience. And this is one of those releases that really starts to give you even more in-depth view into how your contact center is performing. And I think this is one of those things that you can it just gives you another flywheel, right? That you can just continue to optimize, right? As part of Connect. So I think it's awesome, right, from that perspective.
And I, as you know, I'm a man filled with love.
You are.
And I don't like to throw shade. Well, I like to throw it as rarely as I can, but I'm going to do it. And I'm sorry, Hannah, you're going to see me go a little catty here. But I think historically in the contact center space, we've been really good at and I'm not talking about us as Connect people, I'm talking about contact center people, really good at focusing on agent reporting and agent
Mhm,
optimization,
mhm,
and maybe a little bit all right at the contact reporting and the customer side. But
mhm.
how our actual contact center is performing has been totally mysterious to us. Where are people actually dropping out of our contact flows? What are the
Mhm,
effective flows? What
mhm.
choices are they making? It's just been I
Well, it was
think
a
the
little
route is
hard. It
working.
was a bit harder to do, Doug, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
just some of the logging, right? Like, you had to do a lot of heavy lifting to go figure that out, right?
Yeah,
In
you
terms of,
effectively had to build it
yeah,
yourself, creating
kind of, yeah, more
attributes
or
and
less,
then, yeah.
yeah.
And so I think yet again, we are um, creating, I guess, a new category as part of the contact center as well. Not only improving on what's come before, but this is an area where people maybe had become so accustomed to not even knowing about this stuff, they even thought
Mhm,
that they wanted
mhm,
to know about it.
yeah,
And now the ability to actually optimize not just your customer experience, not just your agent experience, but now the actual functioning of the contact center itself brings us one step closer to that self-healing contact center that we're all dreaming of as well.
yes, yes. That is the dream, right? That is the dream for
That
all
is
of
the
us.
dream. That is the dream. Now, and these two, they're the two big releases, and we can go into some other ones as well. But I think I'd like to talk also about one that's not really a feature release, but that is within the market or within the analyst market, I suppose. The Gartner Magic Quadrant has been released
Yes.
for
Mhm,
this year or
mhm.
for last year.
Yeah, so one of the things, we work with a couple key analyst firms, right? And part of that important is to ensure that customers understand where we stand in terms of, in relation to the CCaaS market overall. And Gartner is one of those key, analysts
Certainly is.
evaluations that we participate in, right? As a
Yep.
part of that. And it's great news, right? That we continue to be a leader in this rate, and that was essentially what came out. We bumped up a little bit from where we were last year,
Hmm.
which is great news. And that's we'll spend some time. I think we're going to have a follow up deep dive on this in terms of talking about why we're in this space. I mean it's pretty obvious to us, but that's an area that we'll dive into in terms of talking about that. But there's a bunch of LinkedIn coverage for folks who haven't seen it, and definitely take a look at that. We'll post the links as part of the podcast as well for folks.
Yeah, awesome. And just one of the points that came up from last year's Gartner Magic Quadrant is one of the reasons the three of us are sitting here today doing episode 7 of this magnificent podcast. And I thought this criticism, we always like to be vocally self-critical at Amazon, and I thought they nailed us 100% on one point, and that is they basically said it's a great platform. Really don't get the word out there enough. You just
Hmm.
don't market
Yeah.
yourself enough. You do a whole bunch of good
Yes.
stuff, and no one knows about it. And so
Why? This is why we're doing the podcast,
this
right?
is why we're doing the podcast.
We are doing our bit,
We're spreading
right?
the word.
Providing awareness, right, to the amazing capabilities that Connect brings to our
Yep, just
customers.
one more way for our customers to hear about what we're doing.
Yes.
Now, I think that's enough from us. I love hearing our voice, but
I love hearing your voices too.
oh,
We
stop it!
sometimes get told we're great to for gym workouts or putting people to sleep.
Yeah, we
Definitely
should
going to be
start.
my next
That's the
gym workout.
There is actually an Amazon Connect ASMR channel as well that we run, but that's a separate thing. That's the helping people get to sleep. Now, Hannah, we want to come to you in a second, and Mark, I'll let you frame up the first question to get us into getting the conversation going. But I do want to give Hannah an opportunity to tell everyone that she is a much more famous podcaster than us, and a
yeah.
chance to, in
Yes.
fact, promote her own podcast. So, Hannah, why don't you just spend a couple of minutes telling us about
Oh, I
that?
wasn't expecting this. Yeah, well, very funny enough. So obviously a lot of what I am focused on for my day job is around AI. What I'm really passionate about is what AI can do and what it can unlock for people. But funny enough, my little side hustle that I do is very much focused on human intelligence,
Mhm.
and it's
Mm.
on imposter syndrome, which humans feel. I don't think AI are conditioned yet to feel imposter syndrome without a lot of coaching. But yeah, so it's really around imposter syndrome. It's something that I know know I myself have felt
Mm.
so many times throughout my career. So I'm really passionate about talking about it and helping other people talk about it and address it to ultimately kind of break through it. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about like looping it back to this discussion around generative AI is
Mm.
generative AI to me almost like levels the playing field because everybody's new to it. It's like completely no blueprint for how to do this stuff. So like I find so many conversations in the office right now around like I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm the dumbest person in the room. I was like, well, I have a podcast you can listen to. It's called Imposter Talk by 4 Under 3.
I think this pace with which things are changing at the moment. We just had our tech summit here in Australia, and the number of concepts with regard to generative AI that I thought I was across generative AI, and there was presentations on whole areas I was just hadn't even heard about. I was quickly sort of googling things as I was sitting there in the just trying to make sure I know what that is. Oh, right, that's what. So yeah, I mean, it's very easy to feel it, and it's extremely easy to feel it when you come. I mean, I certainly did when I started at AWS, and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
still today. I mean, there's just so
Yeah.
many smart people around who seem
Mhm.
so motivated, enthusiastic, informed, that it's very easy to feel like you're not keeping up.
Well,
But
I think it's that, and also we're seeing our jobs literally transform,
Mhm.
right? And I think I feel like that's another part is people are struggling with like, how do I manage this new world,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
how
And
do
I
I,
and I don't know that anybody really has that answer yet.
yeah,
But I do think that what I am seeing, and I know we'll get into it in our discussion, but like because generative AI like encompasses so much, like you said, you're across all of it, but you learn these things. Like people who haven't really dove into any aspects of it yet, because they're still earlier in their journey of generative AI, they kind of feel like it's like magic. And so that like leaves a lot of room for fear if it feels like this like black magic type of thing. But one of the things that I have learned throughout the years, I've really dove in and have been an actual practitioner and an owner of a generative AI implementation is like, it actually isn't magic. And it still very much relies on the quality of the operator. So, like, if people are just like leaning in and learning how to use these things, like, it's really just amplifying what people
mm,
do really well and teaching people how to ask really good questions to get really on-demand help, and like, and the good questions are really what is the context that any LLM needs to help really be productive or to be useful. Yeah.
it's interesting that there's a larger sort of point to be made there about life in technology, isn't there? Where it's a bit like learning to drive a car. Once upon a time, and I know you guys gave up clutches years before we did,
I
I've
miss,
but
never
I
it,
miss,
driven a clutch.
yeah,
I miss driving a clutch. Like that was, yes,
but
I miss the fact that you can't buy it. Like these days to find a car that has a clutch, it's like impossible.
I think in
yeah,
Yeah.
Australia that's different,
Is
right?
it?
Don't they have
it's a
more?
little bit more, but pretty much
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
last generation they've largely disappeared. Like maybe if you hire a van or something, it needs a
Right.
needs a clutch. But I'm currently teaching my sons to drive as they come of age, and there's no real point in them learning to drive with a clutch because it's just like I didn't learn to drive on a car that didn't have synchromesh on the first gear. Like
Well, to
it's
be honest, Doug, they're not going to learn. They're not going to even want to drive soon, right? They're just going to. I mean, they
well,
can call
that's
an
it.
Uber, or it's going to be a self-driving car, and they're not going
Yeah,
to worry about it anyways.
and to apply that same analogy to the world of technology, they have no real interest, or despite how much they're dependent on the internet and computers for how a computer works. I mean, these kinds of things are just a magical pane of glass, really. They obscure that there's a processor in there and there's a hard drive and there's memory and there's an operating system and all that kind of thing. So too with data networking. Like they are so dependent on the Wi-Fi at home, yet they don't have the faintest clue how it works. They don't even know the difference between the Wi-Fi being out and the internet being out. Like they're like
they,
and
they can
I
just
still
they can just ask, an AI, and it'll tell them when
well
there's a problem, right?
I
How to
upgraded
solve it.
to an Eero network not that long
Hmm.
ago for the magnificent Amazon Wi-Fi, and you just plug it in, it just starts working. It's gone of the day. You don't even have to put in the username and password. And so, to an extent, I think this is winding my way there. Don't worry. This is why
It's
out of
always
these,
it's always a little bit of a journey with Doug.
yeah.
So yes.
But I think this is the same with generative AI, where you need to decide how much you want to know about how the sausage is made, because you can just open up, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and just begin using it and don't question it. Or you can start to understand, you know, how it's made, and you can start to understand prompt engineering, and then you can go into, well, okay, agentic stuff and MCPs and all this kind of like. And
It's
I
a
think
rabbit. You
that's
get to a rabbit hole really, really fast, right?
and I think
Yeah.
this is an important part for our customers, and this is where I'd love to begin the discussion. Is that how do we begin in the contact center space and with Amazon Connect? Where do you think the real weight of generative AI is? Like,
Hmm.
what's the impact, and what's the most important part for a customer to think about, I guess.
I think so. I have thoughts about this, and this isn't even specific to the contact center
Mhm.
space. I
Yeah.
think this is very much specific to any type of enterprise-wide implementation of something like generative AI. And kind of like the broader you go with it, the bigger the problem you're trying to solve, and the more people you're dealing with, and
Mhm.
everybody has a different perspective of what to expect from generative AI. And like that's why things like measuring accuracy and satisfaction are so hard. And like I'll tell you a real example. So like as I mentioned, I own our enterprise-wide implementation of Amazon Q Business. And so
Mm.
one of the first things that I wanted to really understand was what was the user experience of a brand new user of
Mhm.
Amazon Q Business. And I was really trying to get a sense of like I asked them to do 5 very simple tasks. To me, they were simple,
So
but
this is
some
to a
of
human.
them,
Just you've got a
this
human
is just to
in.
a human. So I
Yeah.
would call
Yep.
somebody up and be like, "Hey, are you an Amazon Q Business user?" They'd be like, "No, I haven't really tried experimenting it with it." I'd be like, "Great, I'm like trying to learn more about the experience." And so I had them open it up, and I was like, "I'm just going to ask you to do like 10 things." And I would have them kind of like run through it. And so I was observing them. And so it really range, obviously, and depending upon the user, like if they had familiarity with AI already because they were a solution architect or they were some other type of non-technical role. But what I found really interesting is I intentionally would ask them to do tasks where I knew they would get an incorrect answer.
Okay.
And so you think about satisfaction with accuracy. And so, like, what I realized was like, I would ask somebody to do an answer, and I knew the answer that they were getting was incorrect. And I'd be like, "So, are you satisfied with the answer?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, this is great." So it's like, so the problem is like very large because you're like dealing with such a like broad range of perspectives and expectations. So I would say, like, oh, go
Is
ahead,
is there
Spencer.
an
Yeah.
assumption? Is there an assumption that it's just right?
Well, it does general. It states it very confidently.
Right. And
Yeah.
that is that aspect of
Yeah.
whether we want to call it critical thinking or questioning the results. Like,
Yeah.
how much of that did you see?
Yeah. Very much varied. Like, so one of the pieces of any type of AI implementation is transparency because
Mhm.
your user will range from people who are taking at face value to be like, okay, great answer, to like somebody who's like very skeptical and they're like, where did this come from? So like that's something that I think very carefully about when I'm thinking about any type of AI experience is like making it very transparent to the user where that response is coming from. Is it coming from like a general worldwide knowledge source? Is it coming from a company knowledge source? And I think that the pieces around transparency are really critical to helping users understand context behind the answer. And I think that's actually a critical piece because like I know that when we think about use AI but use high judgment, you're already like telling the user that they have something to
Mhm.
fear.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
you have to do everything you can in the tool itself to help people make that judgment call. It's not enough to be like, it's really still on you though if you use this information and it's wrong, even though we're giving you this
Right.
service.
Mm.
And I think that's a piece of like the end user experience, especially at scale, that's really, really, really difficult.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you think that translates to end user customers dealing? So say, you're using a self-service Q and Connect style bot towards. Do you think there's a level of there's a trust issue there, or too much trust? Are we at risk of misrepresenting our answers to customers? Like, what's the?
Um, I think that there is going to be a variance depending upon what the use case is. So, like, if
Mhm.
it is like a shopping experience, my tolerance for how correct or personalized that response is going to be very different than if I am like asking a question that's related to moving money around for my
Or a
finances
government
or related
agency
to
or something
our
like yeah.
government agency or putting like very personal information in. So I think I think that kind of goes back to maybe one of the points that I was like attempting to circle and then I kind of like got like sidetracked by my other thoughts. But like, yeah, like I think one of the things with customers that I would talk to externally and also internally is like internal groups at Amazon. We're talking about where do I want to start with my AI implementation. So they're like, well, tell me
Mm,
what you're trying to do. Like, so
mm,
that comes back to my point around maybe AI is magic. So they'd be like, okay. So they've explained to me like the most like sexy, crazy thing that they were going to implement with generative AI, and I was like, do you have a human doing it that way in a day? Like, are human like,
mm,
do you even understand this process that you're trying to automate through generative AI? And the answer to that was like, not really. And it's like, okay, well, so like, let's take a step back. Like, you have to start with a problem that's pretty simple that you understand really well. And then you pick a group of people that understand that problem really well so that before you
mm.
start scaling it out and getting kind of these like unpredictable outcomes with unpredictable people, you have a controlled way of doing that. And I don't think that's like earth shattering when you think about like how any enterprise would roll out like an enterprise type of experience. But I think that when this generative AI excitement started and everyone started experimenting, it was like the race to who could
Mm.
do it the most, the fastest. And then we kind of landed in a spot where now we're trying to like scale it back and figure out how to actually solve the problems we want to
Well,
solve.
what we're seeing, and I'm certain this won't have made news in the States, but here the biggest bank, Commonwealth Bank, it was considering the size of their contact center, which is probably beyond 10,000 agents, I'd say, but they fired, I want to say 40 agents, but they stated in the press we're retrenching them because of improvements in AI. They
Hmm.
linked it directly. It's the first time someone said, thanks to generative AI, we're getting rid of these.
Hmm.
Within a week, they had hired them back, and all the newspaper articles said that in fact the new generative AI chatbot had increased calls into the contact center because of, I think they had failed to, maybe the tool they were using wasn't very good. It certainly wasn't us, by the way. But they were I know exactly who it was, but I don't want to, that's not, it's not my place to introduce scuttlebutt, as I say. But the
That'll be a
but I
different podcast, Doug. We're working on.
Is it called the scuttlebutt? Is that what you
Scuttlebutt,
said?
yes.
Scuttlebutt.
It's a perfect name.
It is.
But they had failed to do that iterative process. I think what you're talking about there, that kind of try it, see how it's going, test, start scaling it out,
Well,
and that's what we've tried to do with the tools we have. Yeah, go on,
I
Mark.
think that's a really good question, right? So, right, obviously a lot of challenges, but what have you seen going well, right? Like what are use cases where you're seeing AI is a great fit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, the ones that the practitioner understands extremely, extremely well. And I think that there was a time when the tools were newer and they weren't as like business user friendly,
Mhm.
that it was harder for the person that was really close to the problem to actually configure the tools and do these experiments. And I think like Doug, you mentioned some of the new innovations that have come out with Connect, where that's really game changing because what we saw is that like we would invest really heavily in even a simple use case, but it required a lot of like engineering power and it
Mhm.
required a lot of like planning. And then by the time you're ready to deploy it, the models have improved so much and the tooling has
Yeah.
improved. So then you're like, oh, well, yeah. So I think that we're actually in a really good spot now where the ability for a business user to be able to configure very personalized agentic experiences. And it's nothing like it could be as simple as like custom instructions for how you want it to behave. And it's like a
Mhm.
simple text box that you put it in. Everything's becoming a lot more friendly and like UI builder. So I think
Mm.
that question, like the answer to that question is changing a lot. But I think
Mhm.
the fact that we've brought a lot of these tools closer to the people, to the problems, is gonna like it just accelerate. I think we're at like a very different time than we were a
Mhm.
couple of years ago. And
Mhm.
and I know that you can read the stats and be like, a lot of these AI projects have failed, and it's like, yeah, but the tools are in a different place. And I think
Yeah.
that that's really gonna change the game for
It
people.
feels like we're getting a lot. While they may be failing, we're getting a lot of learnings.
The learnings are not
Right.
failings. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to learn, and those failings are how you like you said, like it's how you kind of start to see how the sausage is made. Because the
Mm.
more these tools improve, the further away you are from that.
Well, we can always
And
come back
yeah.
to the famous Amazon Fire Phone, and I know like, we can talk about that because Andy Jassy used to use it himself as an example of, out of this we got Alexa and Echo devices and all the rest of it, and sort of the technology there. But he did say he still had a garage full of Fire phones if anyone wanted one. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
our-
I kind of would
our-
want one just for retro sake, right? I think
yeah,
it'd be a cool
absolutely.
retro
I
device
would
to have.
love to see one.
Mhm.
But yeah, and so do we want to take it? upper level, and just if you could share what you believe the overall guiding principles of our approach to AI within the contact center and where we're trying to get to, because I think that's really important, that everything we do at Amazon Connect, well, at AWS and Amazon.com, but at Amazon Connect is deliberate. It's not like
Yeah.
we're just firing random features out there going bang, oh, let's just do some stuff. And like we're building.
Yeah, we're not into the buzzword thing, right? To just do
Yeah.
it for the sake of
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
it buzzword worthy.
Well, so I think and I know there's been so much investment and innovation with Connect and in AI. And I think that, we talk about it a lot, but I think when it comes to generative AI, the fact that you are getting all of these built-in AI capabilities in one tool set is actually extremely powerful when it comes to Gen AI. And the reason I say that is because we a year ago, 2 years ago, we're in a world where everybody was running as fast as they could to run experiments in all these different places. Well, now that you have this like crazy, insane enterprise full of different experiments, and it was before like MCP, and so that wasn't even a
Mm-hmm.
thing people were thinking about how they were all going to integrate together. And now we're like having to go back, and like you said, the learnings are critical, but you're kind of re-engineering everything. And so I think the fact that it is, certainly there's like benefits to an approach where you have like different AIs for different use cases, but like I think the fact that it is all built into one solution is really differentiating. And then I think like also the phased approach which Amazon Connect has taken, which like kind of starting off with Q with agent assist, is very similar to what I was saying earlier. Like start with people who can actually get that contextual answer, also have a higher tolerance for like, oh, this may not be 100% accurate. So like you're really, tenured agents, for example. And then you start to look at like, just big data, because obviously generative AI is good for like,
Mm-hmm.
sentiment analysis and those
Sure.
types of things, theming. Yeah, then you have the data to start to figure out how you can scale it to customers who don't just like operate within the confines of an employee does even. Like agents are, humans still have training and they still have a lens that you provide to them. So I think that is very, very strategic on Amazon Connect's part, the way they've like kind of phased that rollout. And also very much is like at a good time to start to really experiment with these self-service tools now that we do have all these learnings from agent usage and like the analytics type of side of what AI can do.
Well, the analytics, I mean, that's critical, isn't it? That
So
the observability. And I think when we introduced IVR recording, so we expanded what used to be our recording that was just doing the agent conversation, bringing that forward to the IVR interaction. At the time, I kind of went, it's okay, I guess. I assume some customers want it and it's critical for their business, but, every IVR interaction is just about the same. Not so with generative AI. If you're going to have something generating answers, you want to be sure
Yeah.
that you can go back and find verbatim what's been
well,
said.
it's
And
that notion of treating these virtual agents or AI agents in the same way we're treating human agents,
yeah,
right?
Mhm.
And
exactly.
being able to evaluate them and measure their performance in the same way, right?
And
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 not because
having
you want to run some kind of workhouse, but because you want to make sure
yeah,
the customer experience is good.
yeah, yep. And that's half the battle, right? Is having that visibility into how those agents, what their agents are doing with your end customers and how they're performing and what are those outcomes,
Mhm.
right? That you're
Well,
having around that.
I'm going to get a T-shirt made one of these days. We'll also have a unicorn on it, but I'm going to with a famous quote by a very handsome and erudite young man called Douglas Park. That was reporting is more important than routing in the contact center. Like it's reporting
Yeah.
is job zero. Well, security is job zero. We all know that. But in the contact center, what the contact center manager cares about first is what can I report on? What can I see? What's the data? What's happening? And then I can start to fix the routing or change the routing and all that kind of stuff.
It was no different from an enterprise standpoint, like
Yeah,
understanding,
That's
even though,
interesting.
like,
yeah,
Q Business is more of a general productivity assistant for, business and like enterprise users. But
Mm.
same here, like having the insights was so critical. And then like, you know, in an enterprise too, you have to think about, well, what can I report on and still make sure that I'm adhering to like corporate making sure we're protecting employees' privacy. Same with like customer privacy. So because generative AI, like it's almost like taking a look into someone's psyche a little bit. So
Mm,
you have to really kind of think about that too and work really close. Like, I work really closely with your legal and your privacy team to make sure that you're
mm.
protecting your end customer, whether it's an internal or an external person, while also getting the insights that you need to help, deliver better customer experiences at scale ultimately.
And you've seen this, being used at the largest scale.
hmm
And so, like, what are some of those key learnings that you saw from that, right? In terms of operating
Um,
at that larger scale.
I honestly, the key learning for me was that because there's still such an education, I'll call it an education gap around what generative AI does and what LLMs can do. A lot of features that came out very early on, and this isn't specific to key business. I noticed this with other, external tools as well, is like because models have limitations, we've built like little buttons to try and like solve for those things. Like, for
Mhm.
example, LLMs all have a knowledge cutoff. So that means that for use cases that require real time insights, we have to implement something in order to get that. And so we're like, great, we're just going to put this like thing on the UX and surely people will know what that means. And like, no. So like, I think one of the biggest learnings was that like making the initial experience that people get into so it's not intimidating, so they don't see something and like, this is so much, I don't even know what to click on, I don't know what to put in, like where's my information going, making that first experience so simplistic, and making it very clear that there's like one of three things that they can do, because
Mm.
it feels almost like once you kind of hook people into getting comfortable with like clicking something and putting a prompt in, then it's like it almost takes away this like fear of getting people engaged, and it was really just like that first moment that's so critical to capture people in. Yeah.
It's the analogy I've heard is it's the button, the one button,
The one
the
button.
one
Yeah.
button analogy,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
Mm.
how simple it is now, right?
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
that, and people now are just getting used to that, that's like almost a UI paradigm at
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
point, right? When it comes to AI, it's like, what is the task? It's one button, right? And that's how simple it is right now.
I always want to come back to whenever we talk about generative AI though, because I think this is important that, and
Mhm.
correct me if you guys, I know Mark's heard me say this before. He didn't correct me then, so if he does now, he's a hypocrite.
I've got
Uh,
a list here, dog. It's hard to keep up.
the, I think we are taking at Amazon Connect, rather than that horizontal view of generative AI within customer experience, that okay, we're going to try and solve this with a bot up front that does everything and knows, and only then when it fails do we then fall out to a human who's then going to try and sort that problem. And it's more of a vertical view where sure you can do the bot experience that can be self-service, but ultimately the tools that are going to be available to the human are going to be the AI agents are going to go off and do all the tasks you need it to do. For instance, the agent call comes in, the agent, for want of a better term, hits that one button and it goes and it authenticates you. It goes, checks your credit limit, your product history, whatever that is, case history. But the agent is still providing that human interaction, the empathy with the customer, because I think the first thing everyone thinks of is, oh, we're going to get rid of all the contact center agents. When in actual fact, the recognition that is still there or should still be there, that most of the time when I call you, I have already been to your website and I couldn't solve my problem. I've already been to the app. I have a problem, or I'm highly anxious, or there's a time dependency. I mean, there was one time where my mother was disoriented and lost in the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris, and she had been lost in customs for like an hour and a half. I
We've
did
all
not
been
want to
there.
speak to a
Yes.
bot at that moment. I wanted to speak to a human who felt my sense of urgency about finding my elderly mother. But the point there being that we're not trying to. Well, yes. What I was trying to say was that when you call, I want to talk to someone. I don't like. I've taken the time to actually dial the number and sit in the queue, however long that is. But so that it's not an either or. That agent is still going to have all the power of generative AI to support them. I mean,
Mhm.
you are intimately involved with Q at all levels, both Connect and Q for Business, and all that can do for the agent. But then on top of that, the summarizations and all these kinds of things. So I'm interested to know whether that aligns to your thinking, then that flowing into the back office as we're seeing with cases and tasks and being an orchestration layer for the whole business. Is that really? Do I have my head screwed on straight there, or am I? And I'm happy. I have a very thick skin. You can tell me I'm full of nonsense.
Oh, this question was to me.
That was a question, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I
have an
wasn't sure.
opinion, but,
I wasn't
but
sure.
I know
if
you
this
tuned
was
in.
Mark.
I assume no one's still listening to the podcast at this point. We're a full 5 minutes over, but
Well,
carry on.
That was a lot. It was a long road.
Oh no, I got to get better. Yeah.
Ultimately, yes. Like I do
Yeah.
think that is 100% where, things will ultimately go. I think again, like there's a couple of things that I think we need to all figure out before we get there. And the challenge that I'm finding is, like, I think we talked about it earlier. People want Gen AI to help provide a shortcut to getting to this place where people really understand their own processes. Because, like, especially in enterprises, like things move so fast, and it's really hard if people haven't been diligent about documenting things as they get updated along the way.
Yeah.
It's like it's hard. So I think, like, we just have to, like, be honest with ourselves that we will get there, but, like, there's some, like, unsexy work that needs to happen first. And some of that is just, like, making sure that you fully understand your own process. Because what is an agent? It's like a newborn baby that you have to, like, take to a college level education on a topic. And if you don't understand it yourself, you can't do that. So, like, when you talk about, like, hallucination, what I found is, like, yeah, these LLMs do hallucinate, but it's because there's they don't have the context. So they're just, like, making up something that sounds right. So you have to provide the context. And I think that's where these, like, enterprise generative AI solutions are really, really critical, and getting them right, and, like, taking the time to get your data right, because no LLM is ever going to be able to solve for your enterprise data, and it shouldn't, right? Like, some things will never live outside of your company walls. So you have to figure out the right way to get that information.
Well, and I think ultimately the contact center is going to be the main orchestrator.
I think so
right,
too.
across
Yeah.
that whole CS experience, right? And particularly to your point around the fact that I think it's going to be easy to start with these smaller specialized agents that are very focused on very specific domains, and
Yes.
that's right. And then the key is going to be, how do you start to scale that, right? As you start to have to collaborate across multiple sets of those agents, right? Because I don't think that the notion of having a small, like, we're going to be dealing with more agents, not less.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
It's amazing how this always comes back to the 5 principles of why move to the cloud, and how to move to the cloud, going way back to, like, when I first started, and it predates my time. Start small, experiment, get it right, move on. There's no one big fix. And when it comes back to the security, agility, go global in minutes, I suppose. Those kind of these fundaments of, okay, well, how do we move to the cloud, and why move to the cloud, apply equally as to when you were just spinning up an EC2 instance to when you're embarking on your generative AI journey.
Yep.
And I would say, like, beyond just the process side, there's also the technology side. Like, if you very similar to what you were saying, like, if you truly want to immerse this into your enterprise, then you have to be ready for a lot of work around figuring out, like I'd say the majority of the time that I spent was, like, not on these, like, fun, sexy problems. It was, like, authentication, like figuring out authentication at such a massive scale with a lot of different systems. It was, like, thinking about all those types of problems.
So that's it. That's the security, the scalability, the elasticity.
That's
like, when we look at sort of, a lot of the core primitive capabilities, like, what's being built on Agent Core, right? Because we're trying to solve a lot of those harder problems, right? That, that you have. It's non-negotiable.
If you want this to be something more than just a demo, if you want it to actually be production ready, at scale, deliver business value, these are the things, as really well put, Hannah, these unsexy things, the non-functional things that are actually what prevent you getting, and what's always prevented something getting to production.
And if you're spending a lot of time with these experiments without doing that work first, you're going to constantly be at this stage of, like, why is this not meeting my expectation? It's like, well, you still have to put in the work to make it. But I think the difference is, like, the ROI is so substantial. It's, like, unlike anything we've seen before with what generative AI brings to the table, but we still have to take the time to kind of do it right, I think is where I'm at.
Well, I think we've got to wrap it up. I don't want to, because it seems to be getting more interesting as we go along. Hannah, thank you so much.
We can always bring Hannah back, right?
Well, I was going to say thank you so much.
Yes.
And like,
Part 2.
Right.
well, in 6 months from now, it's going to be an entirely different conversation
totally
as it
different.
is 6
Yeah.
months
100%.
from what it was 6 months ago. So,
Completely agree.
if you will come back, we would absolutely love that. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
you know where to find me.
Yes.
Yeah. And you
Absolutely.
guys enjoy your evening. I shall enjoy the beginning of my day. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
That
Yes.
sounds great. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
See you guys.
Thank you, my
Bye.
friend. We'll chat soon. Bye now.